Tibet Policy Institute held its 5th Young Indian Research Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies from 6 to 7 this month. Around 20 Indian scholars and researchers from different parts of the country presented their research papers on the topic of Tibet and the Himalayas at the conference. In today's episode of In Conversation with Tibettv, we are going to talk with one of the participants from the TPI conference, Dr. Junjun Sharma Pathak, whose research paper highlights the Himalayan frontiers and India-China territorial dispute in the eastern sector, diverse Indian narrative from Arunachal Pradesh. Dr. Junjun is joining us from Delhi. Tashi Deling, and welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me, with you in your program. Yes.
Dr. Junjun, can you tell us briefly about yourself to our audience?
Okay, I'll be brief with my introduction, however. So I've completed my PhD from School of International Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. And I was also working as an assistant professor for a while with Delhi University. And then I joined as a postdoctoral fellow at the Delhi School of Transnational Affairs. And currently I'm working with an NGO in Tawang, which is a museum project. And if I have to just broadly say what are my research interests, it's of course border conflict in India's northeastern region, which includes Arunachal Pradesh, India-Bangladesh border. And, currently I've been also trying to understand the entire dynamics along the India-Myanmar border as well. Yeah.
Your paper is on the India-China territorial dispute in the eastern sector of India, especially in Arunachal Pradesh. So what is your understanding on how the people in this region have responded to the Chinese claim over Arunachal Pradesh with the recent news of incursions and the Chinese PLA forces are entering into the Indian border and naming the places in Arunachal Pradesh in Chinese name, such news like that. So, and also with that, how the region has transformed post-1962 India-China war, which we know that India is a very surprising war for, or heartbreaking war it's for India. Can you tell us more about that?
So my research actually began with the question that you have actually, just mentioned, the events that you have just mentioned, that we see a lot of news of incursions, claims and counterclaims along the India-China, border, across the entire LAC. And then, but however, my research focuses on the eastern sector in Arunachal Pradesh, right? So my research began, in fact, with this entire motive of understanding how the local stakeholders along the conflicted region perceive these Chinese claim over Arunachal Pradesh, right? And also, we also need to understand that Arunachal Pradesh, say like before 1962 and previously, it had a very different relationship, say, with the center, with the Indian state, right? And how this relationship, and my research kind of also looks into how this relationship started changing, say like post 1962. So your first question, which is how the local people have responded to the Chinese claim, right? So my research indicates that the local population feels that these claims are baseless. Like you are asking me about the perspective of the local people, right? So my research led me to this understanding that these claims are baseless because now with time, the population along that region identifies very strongly with the Indian state. They feel they are an integral part of the Indian state, right? So this is how they have responded to the Chinese claim, and this is how they identify themselves, with the Indian state, that they are integral part of India. Secondly, when you ask me how the region has changed after 1962, so it's a very long, if I have to answer, I have to just go on because, it's a long study. So there is no one answer to it, but however, if I have to answer just in terms of what happened after 1962, yes, after 1962, as you said, as you have mentioned, that it was a shocker, like it was a shock for the Indian state to kind of aggression in such such large scale and intensity. So the Indian government after 1962 took very proactive steps to integrate the region within the standardized national discourse. I would say that there are some very experienced scholars who have already worked in detail about this entire transition process. And adding on to it, I would also say that the Indian government took took a lot of initiatives in terms of administrative initiatives, in terms of like cultural initiatives, to to make its presence felt in the frontiers. Because remember, at one point that region was totally inaccessible, right? Until 1962, we felt that the Himalayas are going to be like the borders, the guardians and the protectors. But that during the war, that myth kind of busted, right? And we really thought that it's high time we kind of equip as a state to protect our boundaries. So I think it changed a lot of things, just not in terms of how we are looking at Arunachal Pradesh, but in terms of how we look at international politics, how we treat our neighbors, and how also we are going to treat our other boundary challenges. Be it like the eastern frontier, western frontier, or the border regions along the other northeastern states. This is what I have to say. Yes.
What do you think should be the solution to Chinese aggression on the McMahon line, and what sort of policy the Indian government should stand for peaceful coexistence? I think you have talked about a little bit, but you can explain a bit more.
It's a very tough question. There's never one, solution or an answer to, how can we kind of, manage our border disputes? How can we control Chinese aggression? There are very senior people who are maybe more qualified to comment on this. But however, to justify my research, I'm going to give my understanding. So I feel India should remain consistent with its economic goals. And also in terms of military might, I think it should be always military capabilities are an important aspect of managing the border conflict with China. And currently, I think the way situation is, I think it's better to maintain a status quo. But however, I believe that India should engage with China at all levels, be it multilateral forums, at a bilateral forum, diplomatic mechanisms, or say any economic avenues. There's no one answer to it right now, and this is my understanding so far. Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Junjun, so my last question before signing off with this short conversation. How important do you think this kind of conference, you have attended the TPI conference in Dharamshala, here in Dharamshala. So how important is it for the Indian scholars and upcoming researchers to have a discussion on Tibet and Himalaya in India?
Thank you for the question. I would say it was indeed a very engaging and meaningful conference, and I would definitely like to thank TPI, Sarah College, and Dr. Tenzin, who kind of got in touch with us and gave us the opportunity. Why I feel this conference has relevance, because firstly it addresses the question of representation, particularly for the Tibetan community. See, with time and new circumstances, the needs and aspirations of every community changes. So when you have a platform where you're meeting people from various backgrounds who are sharing their views, we also kind of got exposed to the stakes of the Tibetan community at the current level. And the conference also kind of, focused on the changing dynamics of the Himalayan frontiers, right? And also the new issues, be it climate change, be it the geopolitical imperatives, or say environment. That all these things together made this conference, a very important point from where we could make additions to our knowledge pool, right? And most importantly, what I felt as a scholar was that there were people from various backgrounds. So it was very interdisciplinary, even in terms of academic, how would I say, academic outcomes from through the conference. I think we could gain a lot, and I really hope that such initiatives continue in the future, because it's a good space to represent views, and also open our minds to what's happening. So I think that's what I have to say about this conference, actually.
It was lovely talking to you, and thank you so much for coming to our program.
No, I think it was a thank you for having me there, and thank you for being a wonderful host. Thank you.
With this, we have come to the end of today's In Conversation with Tibet TV. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode.